Good afternoon, Tammy. I'm so excited to have you here today. For all those who are listening, my name is Cody Hall. I am the host of The Faces. Entrepreneurs Are People. I'm also the CEO and founder of Telehelping, a virtual staffing organization, and I'm really excited to chat with you about my guest today, Tammy Penhollow. Tammy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Cody. I've been looking forward to this, and it's always fun to get to know and support a fellow veteran. So thank you for everything you've done for our country.
Yes, and happy belated Veterans birthday. I actually just had the Marine Corps birthday. It's hard as a Marine sometimes. We get caught up in the whole veteran thing because we're always thinking about ourselves. But, after we're done celebrating us, we like to celebrate everybody. So happy belated Veterans Day to you.
Thank you, and happy belated Marine Corps birthday to you.
Thank you. Well, Tammy, in the nature of my business, I'm in outsourcing. So to do that well, I have to outsource your introduction to the person who knows you the best. So please tell us who you are.
Sure. I am a physician entrepreneur. Actually, I think I'd call myself a serial entrepreneur. I was active duty Navy for 12 years. Thank you to everybody who paid for my medical school. I was on a health professional scholarship and served my country in places like Okinawa, Japan, Rota, Spain, deployed to Kosovo, deployed to Djibouti, Africa. And I love to give back. Service is in who I am as a physician. After the military, I don't know if you call it a 180 of bucking the system, of being told what to do and how to do it and where to do it. But I knew the moment I graduated from fellowship for pain management that I would have my own business. So I bought a practice straight out of fellowship. So that was my first foray into entrepreneurship. Since then, I have another practice, but it's not traditional pain management. I also have, I do anesthesia as a 1099. So that's a small business there. And I've looked into other things such as medical expert witness. And I'm just a serial entrepreneur, but I love doing things my way, but also staying ahead of the game in terms of things like, the healthcare system is broken. So what can I do my part to get my patients better and not under the constraints of insurance? So that's kind of who I am. And what I'm passionate about is continued travel around the world and just being outside in nature, loving Arizona, loving the hiking. I'm from Central Oregon, so it's a totally different environment, but I'm still all about the outdoors.
No, Demi, that's great. I myself, man, Djibouti is such a fun place, isn't it? It's such an interesting place. Uh, you find it on the map. If you've never been there, I dare anyone to try to find it on the map. Tell me what continent it is. If you've never heard of it before, take some guesses in the comments. I promise you, most of you are probably wrong. And so I was like, where is this place? And so I found it one day on the Marine Expeditionary Unit. So I understand you there. And it was so funny. I was wanting to get outside today because my office is not as great as my sunroof here, my sunroom. And I was like, I'm gonna walk outside. I told my wife, I'm like, hey, my son's sleeping. Come, hang out with me outside and let's chat a little bit while I have a break. And she's like, it's cold outside. I'm like, no, I walked outside. She was right. So I'm enjoying nature from the glass. And so wonderful introduction. And for those who don't know, being a physician is such a complex business arrangement, right? Especially jumping into practice. I ran merger and acquisitions for a practice organization in California, and so I know the primary care, the pain management, and specialty care practice system very well. And so to jump into that after fellowship, what were you thinking? Just like I'm gonna get into this practice.
Yeah, I knew that I didn't want to be an employee. I don't think I'm employable. Honestly, I think that I am best being a
I
disruptor.
love it.
I'm best being a person that is shaking things up, or a rebel, as it may be. But I think that I'm in the forward thinking and moving and shaking world rather than compliance.
Yeah. And I am also a really bad employee. Um, we're even working for myself sometimes. My current boss is me, and he works me a lot. The hours are long. The pay at the beginning was rough. Sometimes I didn't get paid at all, and so being in business for yourself is tough. And so, what was And one of the initial challenges, besides all the challenges that could come with running a practice, that you found in, you're coming out of education, right? And for those who don't know, obviously doctors go through a lot of education. So we got undergrad, post grad. You went to a fellowship. What was that, 2 years or 1 year?
It was a 1 year
And
fellowship, 3 years of
yeah,
residency, a year of internship, 4 years of med school, and 4 years of
y-
college.
yeah. So you probably had a really strong social life at this point, right?
Absolutely.
Had so much time to yourself, and then you're like, I want to start a business. How did that impact your desire to pursue a life at the same time?
I was kind of used to going and moving every 2 years with the Navy. I didn't stay in one place any longer than that. I guess residency was 3 years, and that was the longest I stayed anywhere. All my other billets or jobs were about 2 years. So
Mhm.
it was going to be the first time that I kind of stayed in one place for a little bit longer. I was at Stanford for fellowship, and I just went up the street to San Francisco where the practice was. I had still, even at that point, dreams of, I still want to get back to Arizona. I did med school rotations in Arizona. I could maybe have a physician running the practice in San Francisco while I branched out to somewhere like Phoenix. So I was always thinking ultimately that I'd be back in the desert. It was one of those things, it was just, I thought that I'd best be able to serve my patients that way, where I envisioned being able to bring them under one roof and have things like pain psychiatry and physical therapy and occupational therapy and all those things that would be less burdensome to them to have to be farmed out. No, I can't, I'm on a wait list here, can't get there. So that was the training at Stanford, and that was the kind of practice that I was looking at. They already had that little model where they had
Mhm.
once a week conferences for new patients, and it kind of multidisciplinary to talk about how to best manage. Long story short, that was not the practice for me. It was not exactly what it was represented to be in terms of finances, despite a whole bunch of experts coming in to do some due diligence, and me myself doing some due diligence. So I ended up closing that unprofitable practice pretty quickly and retreated back to Arizona. Retreated back into anesthesia after starting out with a pain management group here that was high volume with some orthopedic surgeons who wanted somebody to take over their um, med management or take over the patients who didn't get better with surgery. So pills, 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 pills. And within the first
Yeah.
year of me being back in Arizona, I was one of the highest prescribers because that's just the way it is. And that was not the model I wanted to practice. That was not the kind of pain management that I wanted to do, is just here's a pill. And oh, by the way, to get more pills, why don't you come back in for some more procedures? Almost like bartering. And that wasn't me.
Jeez.
So I walked away from that and was able to pivot because I had anesthesia. Was able to say, I can always do anesthesia, and it still continues to be a little bit of my safety net when my boss doesn't pay me, right?
Yeah.
Because
You
the
know,
pay,
uh, a funny thing, I remember a joke once someone told me about anesthesiologists. You just a big fan of Architecture's Digest mostly. And so isn't that isn't that what anesthesiologists do? They put you to sleep and then they read Architecture Digest.
I've never picked up a copy of that myself. I really don't sit in the operating room. I'm standing. The surgeons are a little bit. They're like, "What's going on up there? What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm vigilant.
Yeah.
I'm watching. I'm listening. I'm there. So I'm pretty active in the operating room.
And that's great. And being aware of where your practice of medicine takes you is very important. As veterans, we understand the epidemic that the VA has gone through in order to care for its veterans, and the overprescribing is that I was victim to it. I know many people who with injuries that come out and with addictions to narcotics, and it was just something that was prevalent in my friend group. Being from the recon and sniper units, I know a lot of people who were injured, and so the group as a whole, it's easy if you've never experienced being on medication like that. What I explained to someone is I remember taking my medication and I'm like, wow, that feels good. Right. And I'm like, that's scary. That's a scary thought process. And so I could see how turning tail from that and going a different direction, is something you as a veteran would do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It wasn't not why I went into pain management. I went into pain management actually wanting to go into derm for the longest time. And I was hanging out at the Naval School of Health Sciences in San Diego and still applying for derm. Oh, you're wait, try another year, try another year. But then 9/11 happened. And I was like, how the heck am I going to serve all these people as a dermatologist? And now, you think of little things like Dr. Pimple Popper. I wouldn't be that. But, so how would I best serve them? I best serve them doing acute pain management. So I was at Walter
Yeah.
Reed National Naval 3 times a week. We get big, huge airplanes full of people that were wounded and maybe spent a night in a cash mash kind of situation, maybe a
Right.
night in launch stool, and we get them right after that. So I spent some time in launch stool taking care of people immediately. And then some of my patients were still there in the hospital getting washouts every other day, every other day, every other day for weeks or months when I got back to Walter Reed. So that's how I best served my brothers and sisters who were coming back injured.
Yeah, and people don't know that for those who aren't military based, when you get injured in country, in your injuries are what we refer as like career ending, right? And it's kind of the end for you. You find yourself back in places like Germany, Walter Reed, and that is a surreal experience for you because you're sitting there and what I know guys that were injured as early as their first patrol and guys who were injured on the very end. And for those who were injured mid deployment or early, and they're sitting there like, wow, I'm back at Walter, back in Berlin somewhere, and the fight's still going on. And here I am in this quiet bedroom all day with other injured guys who are also quiet, and you're just soaking in your injuries and your sorrow. So that's a tough place to serve, and it's one that oftentimes people don't know exists. My brother, I think he spent 4 or 5 months in Germany, right? And so he was there for a long time before he was ready, capable of shipping, and so he's capable of moving back. So I appreciate your service there. And so you had the practice, you're moving forward. Tell me about you personally. Who's Tammy when she's not serving the folks, fighting pain meds?
Oof. Um, Curious, on the go, on the move. I love to travel. Thank goodness for my opportunities in the military, living in Japan, traveling Europe, living in, Asia and Europe both, and just kind of making those my playgrounds. So for me, I'm happiest when I'm doing big trips. Or at least one big one every year or one every 2 months for little ones. Going back to visit my family in Oregon as often as I can since they're all there and I'm here. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that sense of adventure and curiosity because I love different cultures and I love to cook. And so if you look at my menus, it could be varied. We're cooking Persian tonight, we're cooking Italian the next night I'm doing something from, Senegal the next night. So I love cooking and being outside and traveling. So that's me in a nutshell.
No, no, I love eating, big fan of it. And then I also travel. One thing that's interesting, there's a portion of my clients at telehelping that um, are former US based folks who work internationally. And so, for those who are located in Asia, for example, uh, their hours are weird. In LA time, Pacific time, their 4 p.m. beyond is the start of our day. And, the 4 a.m. beyond is the end of theirs. So they're catching 2 or 3 hours. So they have a virtual assistant in Mexico that is kind of their person, in that gap hours, because they want to live internationally for their own reasons. I lived in Mexico for many years, Asia some, and so I myself love living everywhere, though I'm red, white, and blue to the core. And so they are able to compensate themselves by traveling at the same. Some people travel and they never come back. Where was a place that you kind of like lost your soul when you visited?
Oof. Um, I don't know if it's the same as losing my soul, but maybe feeling like I belonged there the
Yeah.
most. I really love going to Italy as often as I could. Being stationed in Spain, I traveled every other weekend, every third weekend based on call. Um, I don't see maybe forever in Italy, but potentially Portugal. I just think the greatest cost of
Oh,
living there. It's on the coast, still kind of that oceanic thing, and just really nice people. And you can get everywhere from there. So maybe something like that. Or if I was totally going off the grid, um, that's a tough call. I'd probably be somewhere in Africa.
that's fair. No, I mean, Italy is nice. If my wife needs to stop receiving all the advertisements where they can buy a Tuscany villa or something like that,
€1.
for $1, she's killing me. She's like,
Yeah,
"Well, it's just $1. It's just beautiful." I'm like, listen, I'm with you. I think it's a great idea. I would love to do it. I'm not moving to Italy in the middle of nowhere, most likely,
they are.
with zero to no infrastructure. But, I myself live in the outskirts of Guadalajara, most of the time. So I'm in Napa right now, but when I'm living in Mexico, I go back and forth. Um, I love Mexico, and my friend who lives in Spain, he's trying so hard to have it, and I love Spain, but it's not Mexico. Like, Mexico is just culture, people. I step outside of my house here, and I don't see people, which is kind of the point. It's kind of the point here, right? In nature, and it's similar to that in Mexico. But I love engaging people in Mexico. I don't love engaging people in the United States. Um, I because I can walk by someone. I'm like, I get the gist of that person, right? And Spanish, I'm not that. I know enough not to die, as the saying goes. However, for me, everything's a challenge. Every communication is a challenge, and so when living there, like, I miss it very much. Though I like it here, I miss being down there. But I'm getting ready to have another child in May, and so we're back here for all the medical and experiences that has. So that's kind of where I lost my soul. But we're really big travelers as well.
I feel you on that one. And congrats on your impending baby's birth. That's awesome.
No, I appreciate that. Very excited for it. And you know, life expands. I used to believe that the only thing that mattered to me was my career. And it did. I prioritized my career over marriages, and that's plural, right? Plural marriages. As a fairly useful person, I have marriages under my belt because the only thing that mattered to me was being a CEO, being successful, living in the LA life, right? And having all this stuff. And I never thought I'd ever have children, right? And now I find myself not wondering, like, oh, when can I go out and hang out with my friends? Like, oh, I want to be off. My kid's awake. He's in a good mood, right? You want to catch them when they're in a good mood, right? And so, um, for me, I have that balance where I'm always fighting each other. What about you? What challenges you from wanting to be at work? What's that thing that's always pulling you away, that, like, oh, I love my job, but I would love to do this.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a tough call. I guess one reason that I did what I did and took the jobs I did in the military was all about the career, right? I was the
Yeah.
single officer who was moving every two years, living off base because you don't have on base housing for single officers. You have it for single enlisted, but not officers. So
Yeah.
immersing myself in the culture, didn't have the quote unquote wife and kids to worry about with COVID,
Right.
with a job, making sure it coincided with schools, traveling, all these things I could just go and do. So a lot of that
Yeah.
was very career focused. I guess the thing that reined me in, and I didn't get married officially until I was 50. So that's a big deal, right? 50 years of
Yeah.
not, was just that sense of having the battle buddy, having
Yeah.
the partner in crime that you can share all these things with, and not say, okay, is this gal pal available? Is this couple available? And I'm the third wheel. So just having that one person that could kind of go through the ups and downs with you. So that was what brought me out of, okay, it's all about the career. It can be, you can still have an amazing career and have a person.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And then, I look at um, my relationships past, and I look at my relationship present, and I feel like I have, like, a battle buddy. You said it well. Like, you need someone to succeed with, get lost with, make mistakes with, and it's nice to you know, because when you're on top of a mountain, right? As they say in life, when you're on top of the mountain, everyone wants to be your friend, right? But you're going to have moments where life kind of brings you down, and you're going to have moments where your life's always trying to humble me. It's always trying to bring me back in my place, and sometimes it makes a dual effort, right? Sometimes it gets me. Knock on wood, it still needs to try more. And so, the idea is that I'm very ambitious, all right? But when I do get knocked down, my wife doesn't walk over to me and says, "Told you not to touch the sun, didn't I? Right? Told you not to fly too close, Icarus." Right? She could very well. I'm sure you the same way. Where I tell my wife all the time, and I hear some couples argue, and I'm like, "Oh, it's as a couple, we know each other's weak spots. Like we know where to poke each other, right? And so we should never do that." And so, how did you come across, after 50 years of riding solo, what made you say this is the person?
Oof. Um, I think you just have to be in that right spot and that right ready, because there's nobody's perfect. It just maybe is right for you. Not even perfect for you, but right for you. Right timing, right of everything is timing.
Yeah,
So just being ready. I'm putting myself out there saying, okay, it's time, and I'm going to be accepting of somebody who wants to come into my life and kind of ride with and can do the ups and downs. I found somebody that was well traveled, actually was military child, so born overseas, lived overseas quite a bit,
yeah,
spoke many languages, so kind of had that mentality of, if I start talking about Navy stuff, they didn't like roll their eyes and go, "Oh, there you go again," old war stories, because I don't do war, that whole thing. So the relatability there,
yeah.
being open to going and doing and having that sense of adventure, and it just fit.
No, that's great. And yeah, you have to have someone. My wife's my biggest fan, right? I need a cheerleader, right? So I'm sure you need someone who. Military people are strange. I call them peculiar, right? Because even the least military-like people are peculiar, right? And I always get a lot of flack from my community because I don't look like most of them, right? The recon sniper community, I went, they're all fit into some sort of government agent type avatar, or they look like they just got released from prison, right? And so there isn't much difference, right? And there's the
Right.
occasional little spurts in the middle, and their wives, pickle me all the time. They're like, "What happened to you? Like, where's the neck tattoos?" And one of my buddies, Chris, like he's inked up to here, right? And he was a contractor now, and he's right. And then I have another buddy who looks like he'll do your taxes because he's an accountant by trade and works for an agency, right? Um, what an interesting breed. And I don't fit into either one of those categories. Right? I'm
Nope.
just in the middle, lost. So, well,
Yes. You can just
just
hold it.
just drifting through life.
Yeah.
Speaking of like military life and relationships, one of my friends who's my neighbor, one thing, he's an ED doc by practice, and now he works more with the assisted aid in dying world. And so for people who are terminally ill, and one thing that I was chatting with him is he's really never had like guy friends, right? And I was trying to explain to him this the other day, like having those friends that you're in the military, there's no other way in the military, other than the military, would you have been friends with this human, and you're friends with them. And it's hard to explain those type of relationships. I'm sure you still have those people where you're like, not sure how we're buddies, but I can go away from for 4 years, see him a day, and it's picking up where we left off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you miss the camaraderie for someone who spent so much time in?
Sometimes, but again, it's just a reach out and you're back together in terms of connectivity. Just one
Yeah.
phone call, one email can just put you back together. I found that as I kind of achieve the different layers of advancement in my education and career, I don't have any more friends from high school, college, maybe a few, tiny bit, med school, more. So it kind of goes like this. I've got more friends, like the more, a few college, more med school, some residency, most military. because
Yeah.
that was where, you're doing things like you're deployed together. You are completely away from your family and friends, and you're in different situations where you know that you are reliant upon each other. So I think it builds stronger bonds faster.
No, and lasting bonds. Ones that aren't so weak. I've had non-military friends come and go, right?
Mhm.
They come through cycles. I call it every 4 years, right? But then the people I met that I was active for 6 and I was reserve for 6, but those people I knew there, the reserve military buddies, if you don't deploy with them or do anything long term extent, that the active duty environment's a little different. You don't really stick with them, but my active duty buddies, right? They'll text me out of the blue, and we'll pick up right where the last message was, and those are great. If you're not that group of friends, oftentimes you're probably my son or my wife. if I didn't serve with you or start a company with you, I don't know how close we are.
Yeah, I understand
No.
that.
So what's next for you? So you have the relationship now. You're able to have a very successful way of navigating your career, and you seem to have a solid balance, especially if you've done things you didn't like, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm going to this direction," and you kind of swayed into your existence that you do enjoy. Where do you want your career or personal life to take you after this? After you've learned from all of your experience?
I'd really like to have some massive growth. Honestly, I'd rather be able to completely leave behind anesthesia and have this regenerative, holistic practice be the everything that is able to,
Yeah,
pour my heart and soul into. That involves becoming a great team leader. That involves bringing on team, culturing team, and actually then extracting myself from being the one that's doing the interviews and the consults and the procedures to be the one that is the
yeah,
CEO. So I'd see my next step as truly a CEO, right? I'm a CEO of one. Well, I have a virtual assistant, but that's, a little bit different than running a team and running an office. So having my own space that is, big, bringing on other people. And then
yeah,
with that, being able to affect more people and give back and serve more patients, just on a grander scale.
yeah. No, and so tell me about the practice. And I myself, I owned Octiva Healthcare for a while, and I think I'm on my third company where I don't call them virtual assistants. We're virtual assistants by industry terminology. I call them virtual staff because I really have to have a reason to hire someone stateside. Like, you have to be in person for me or require a license for me to hire you stateside, just because I am obsessed with the value that the international people who can bring to the team at the cost that they can bring to the team, which is really great. Especially when you bootstrap a business. I bootstrap telehealth. If you bootstrap your business, cost is important. so,
Yes, it is.
so tell me about your holistic practice and the direction that you kind of want to go with that.
Sure. Right now, it is me and my virtual staff who answers the phones for me and helps schedule people for me and does a lot of our social media management. She is in the Philippines, and I am very grateful to have been able to bring her on in May. For the past, well, since 2019, it's been just me. So a lot
Yeah,
of times the phone went unanswered when I'm in the operating room and I'm doing whatever, putting a breathing tube in somebody as an anesthesiologist. You can't pick up the phone and answer for your business. So
right.
that was a major growth stride. But the the dream I have for it is being able to keep people out of the operating room, being able to bring them in and kind of take it back to the very basics. It's all about inflammation. It's all about putting out that fire of inflammation. And so that's the holistic DO-ness that I am. I'm a DO, not an MD, and proud of it. That you look at lifestyle, you look at sleep, you look at nutrition, you look at supplements, you look at balancing hormones. And then once the body is in a calm down, toned down state, and I can tell that with labs, I can tell that because they're already sleeping better, they're already feeling better. Some of them are even like, my back doesn't hurt anymore. I'll see you when it does back, if it comes back. But thanks, doc. That was great.
Mm,
Like, that's perfect. because then you healed yourself without me even touching you with a needle. But I take healthy cells from healthy anti-inflamed bodies. So blood for platelet-rich plasma, bone marrow, or adipose, which is a fancy term for fat. Sterilely spin it, sterilely put it back in with an ultrasound or an x-ray into the hurt areas. So I do joint and spine. Think of a tennis elbow, think of rotator cuff tears, and you don't want to have a surgery and it's not a full tear. So we want it to heal on its own. Think torn discs, and what can they do but replace a disc? And so
Yeah.
you put your cells in the disc, and it's not just needles in and I don't see you again. It's kind of like partnering with me for a minimum of 3 months, oftentimes 6 to 12 months. So we're there rolling through the mud together on, okay, well, I had a little up, I had a little down, a little up, a little down, but I'm hoping that that up down is ultimately a trajectory like this,
Like the
where
stock market.
exactly, where you've got that year over year, month over net, right? But it's day over
Yeah.
day, week over week, net gain. But it entails a team approach of people that I have developed relationships with, like mind coaching, nutrition coaching, physical therapists that do one-on-ones with the patient
Mm,
rather than just put them in a corner with an ice bag. It's having all these people have these touch points that they're the masters of what they do, and I can't be all things, but I can help orchestrate it and be the conductor. And at this point, I am the one who is the intake, the consultant, the one who
yeah.
then puts the cells where they need to go. But ultimately, it'd be great to have somebody else that could, add some adjuncts in, such as shockwave or laser, or the kind of body stabilization, joint stabilization, spine stabilization treatments that then, that's not me in a room with the patient, that's them next door with the patient while I'm taking in new patients so that we can continue on this growth trajectory.
No, that's great. And um, so I've been through PT. I've broke my back. I've tore my shoulder. I've broken legs, arms. I've had a lot of really some military, some just dirt bikes. And so but when I hurt my back in the military, for the longest time they thought it was just a stretched muscle or something like that. And it turns out it was actually a broke L5, a compressor break. And so I've taken a different approach to life. You spoke of inflammation. Think about the things we put in us that inflame our bodies, that our body reacts to. And, I've taken a different approach, and I'm very supportive of it. I use THC and CBD. And so, in terms of finding relaxation for me and being able to treat my body a different way and my mind a different way, and seeing how those two aren't entirely separate, and so they're technically not separate, but how your mental approach to your recovery can impact the physical approach to recovery. And so yeah.
Yeah, pain is so much about that, right? There are maybe 2, 3 months before you can't not start identifying with as your pain. The fibromyalgia, the broken leg, the arthritic shoulder, the whatever. I'm a person with fibromyalgia. I am a person who has a torn shoulder, but I'm still that person. But it's so easy to kind of just identify with, and then it becomes everything. I can't go to the social event. I can't work. I can't. And there's so many things that then that just puts you in a spiral downward. So to touch on the THC CBD, the cannabinoid, the endocannabinoid system is everywhere within our gut and all of our neuroendocrine tissues and within our brain. And there are, for people who don't want to or can't use THC because they are drug tested, there are
Right.
absolutely pure CBD products and ones that are lab
Yeah.
tested. Some that are even on the massive scale of being started by people who used to be in pharma. So they've even got that grade of technology to test and then have third-party testing. And that you're getting pure quality stuff. So I am excited for it, and I've seen it change people's lives, whether it's topical or sublingual, or in terms of pills or sublingual.
Correct.
People can do really well with it.
No, I absolutely agree with it. And I tell my wife all the time, because she's always saying, like, I'm pregnant. I can't do anything. She's become this person who just exists in pregnancy. I'm like, come on, let's go to dinner. I'm just joking, of course. She'll definitely watch this and she'll pop me upside the head. But really, I know too many people, and especially as we transition to hearing about next steps, and too many people where the injuries became them and they spent years on a couch. They spent years in a house because they didn't want to be seen walking with a cane as a 24-year-old man, right? And so the mentality that can take you in of injury is it's very powerful, and you don't know it until you've been there. You just don't
Exactly.
know it. But no, thank you for that, Tammy. Well, Tammy, I really want to take a moment to tell me specifically about your business, how people can get in contact you, who is that customer avatar and where they located, so that this can act as not only an opportunity to get to know you, but an opportunity to get to know how to connect with you.
Thank you. The business is Precision Regenerative Medicine. That is the website, precisionmedprp.com. I also have a very active YouTube channel. So even if you're not in the Scottsdale, Arizona area, I'm at Dr. Tammy Penhollow. And I do, I don't know, 3-4 videos a week, mostly on knees, because that seems to be the number 2 reason people come to see me. I'd say number 1 is spine, but everybody has 2 knees. And just from everything from exercises on what to eat, I have great people on, and we talk about their subspecialty, like using ultrasound to guide the injections, or how pain psychiatry plays a role in your knee pain, or hyperbaric oxygen therapy for. So I'm very active in educating people. Have a website, have an IG, and I have a Facebook, and they're all kind of related at precisionmedprp.com. But I'd say anybody who's active, anybody who wants to be active and they haven't been, but they're also open-minded to know that you don't just call me today and come in tomorrow and get a needle in your knee, that we've got to optimize you. We've got to harness your body's own healing capabilities before we then put the cells where they need to go. And that's where I see great results. And I'm passionate about that.
Well, thank you so much, Tammy. And it's unfortunate. We didn't do this a week before last week, 2 weeks ago, because I was just for a conference at in Scottsdale, Arizona at Boulder Resort. So I was just at Boulder Resort, and it was beautiful weather. I actually walked every morning to the desert. I'm like, oh, I like this. So man, ships passing in the night. Well, Tammy, I really appreciate you so much for joining us. And for all those who are following, again, this is Tammy Penhollow, and she's coming at us from Arizona. If you enjoyed talking to us today, talking to Tammy, figuring out more about the folks that we bring on here, their unique stories that range from into the military to marrying a man at 50 and then still moving towards this growth trajectory to heal people, give us a follow, give us a like. And if you have someone out there that that's like Tammy or that's interesting like Tammy, connect us. We'd love to have them on. Again, Tammy, I know how precious your time is, and I appreciate you giving us that time today.
It's truly my honor. Thanks again, Cody.
No, thank you, Tammy. Be well. Have a nice day.
This video was brought to you by our official sponsor, Telehelping. Need support for your business? Telehelping connects you with top-tier remote staff to help you streamline operations and fuel growth. Go to telehelping.com and get started today.